Well, I'd like to acknowledge that most of this information that I'm giving you today came from our very creative ruling elder, Barb Berger, who is actually the founder of our theology pub, and from our transitional pastor, Bill Van Nostrand. So if you have questions, I'll try to answer them or get the answer for you. Longview Presbyterian has been holding a monthly evening discussion group for over 3 years called Theology Pub. It started with a couple in our congregation and their college-age son. Our pastor at the time welcomed the idea of a time and place away from the church, setting to discuss issues. As she would say, a chance to look for God to be revealed in others or with the assistance of others. The Theology Pub gives participants a chance to learn the opinion and understanding of others, as well as developing and articulating one's own opinion and understanding. Topics are timely, relevant, and tackle subjects that may not be grappled with at church. We attempt to stay away from politics, but not controversial issues. Some recent topics have been art and faith, future church, justice, flags and faith. We chose a pub or public place in order to not only enjoy the food and drink, but also to be seen in public. To those around us, it is obvious we are having a good time, and hopefully they have the awareness that our discussion is from a Christian view of the world. As Pastor Bill put it, seeking glimpses of God in public. The founder of our group helps prepare the church's electronic newsletter and Facebook page, so it's easy for her to include the topic to be discussed at each monthly meeting. She prepares a list of quotes and questions, very clever I might add, which we see in advance of the gathering. I have some examples if you want to see them later. She does a great job. Typically, our pastor will lead the discussion by facilitating moving from one question to the next. However, at times, the discussion takes its own form. I'll let your imagination work on that. With the exposure of the newsletter, Facebook page, word of mouth, we've attracted many beyond our church family. Our local hospice chaplain, a Lutheran, attends regularly, as well as several retired pastors. We frequently have folks from other churches attend, and sometimes just the curious. Many in the group have life experiences and educational backgrounds which enrich the discussion. This is a fun evening, and it's natural and easy to invite friends to come along. Some of the challenges of organizing our theology pub include logistics, such as finding a space large enough so we can sit in close proximity and hear each other. We have already outgrown one local restaurant. We have a congregation of 60, and frequently we will have over 20 in attendance at one of our meetings. We are even considering adding a second monthly meeting to accommodate the increasing numbers. Another challenge is that some establishments require a minimum number of meals be ordered in order to provide a space for us. Not all attendees choose to order a meal, so we can be close to the limit. We do not require the participants to make a reservation. In summary, it's a joy and a great time of fellowship to participate in the Theology Pub, and I would seriously recommend you try it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I know that there are other churches that do this sort of a ministry. Emmanuel Church in Tacoma does it. Any other churches here have a theology pub? Fircrest?
Yeah, we do. Jim, I can still lease it.
Okay.
I never know it's
Okay.
But Jim started it.
Okay, so there's a third church. I actually read a book just last week. I was on vacation in Florida, and I read a book called Last Call by a pastor in the Denver area that started a church in a local bar. And he figured out that most bars have, like Monday night is a real low attendance at the bar, and he kind of contracted with the bar owner that they would come and have church in the bar every Monday night. And this is spread. He's got several churches now in the Denver area. But I really enjoyed the book Last Call, and would recommend it to you. Our next speaker is Gary Stevens, one of the newer pastors in our presbytery, in one of the older churches in the presbytery in Tenino. And I invited Gary because his church in Tenino was one of the first churches that I had the privilege to work with in the groups that I gathered for missional transformation. And it's a church that has been doing a lot of things in its community. And I wanted Gary to come and speak not only about what is happening at Tenino, but also to give us all assurance that you don't have to be a full-time pastor to be in a very missional church, because Gary is a half-time pastor. So Gary, come on up.
I was going to say, it's good that you got this thing working right before I come up.
I know. I know you.
I'm a preacher. Anything under 30 minutes. I mean, jeez. First Presbyterian of Tenino, very small community, very small church, about 40 members, another 10 or so that are regular attenders. Primarily made up of retired folks, although there's some younger people and a few children. No teenagers that are consistently involved, but interestingly enough, they do come out for some of our community service activities. The church is 125 years old. It's in the very center of town, across the street from City Hall and the fire station in town. So we are known throughout the town, and primarily because we've been there so long. Yes, I'm a half-time pastor. I was hired as such, but that's not what drew me to the church at all. What drew me to the church is they had a missional attitude, and I didn't have to teach them anything about this. I had to learn, and I'm still learning. I'm not convinced that missional is new theology. I think it's the old stuff. Different words, different name, but if it gets us going in the right direction, thank the Lord for it. Just to run down a few of the activities that we've been involved in. There is an organization called Be That, Bucota Tenino Healthy Action Team. It's a government coalition, government-sponsored coalition, working with youth and families, helping to stop the use of drugs and tobacco and alcohol among the youth, and build families, strong families, and work for justice issues. We've hosted family supper and movie nights. We've hosted their summer children's program, which is awesome. And we've hosted classes and seminars on family relations and parenting. And most recently, I was invited to participate in a team that is managing a state grant for a drug-free community. And since there's within walking distance a nice marijuana distribution center, that makes for a real challenge in our community. But it's a lot of fun to work with these folks. The biggest thing that was going on even before I got there was a program called Fifth Sunday. Fifth Sunday is anytime there's a month with a fifth Sunday in it, our worship moves from inside the church to outside. And mostly it's been in the park, and it's mostly by clearing trails, picking up limbs that have come down in storms, weeding areas, cleaning up areas. We've even worked in one Sunday I helped, Dave was with us, change some steps, some railroad tie steps in front of the museum there. And just anything that we can do to help put that, keep that park in good community arrangement. We work side by side with some people from the community, but more importantly, People, ride their bikes down the path or are running and stop and see us doing stuff. And are you being paid to do that? No. Well, wow, that's pretty cool. And we say, well, this is our worship. And they say, well, maybe we'll come out and participate. Because you see, the people we're interested in reaching are the people that don't go to church on Sunday mornings. And the only way to reach those people is get out in the community on Sunday mornings. So that's been a great program. Every year there's an Oregon Trails Day weekend, and we have quite often had a prayer booth within the farmers market area. Just this last year, we had a free pancake breakfast on the Sunday morning because a lot of the vendors come and they camp out there, and we're trying to reach them. And then every year we have an open air in the park worship service on that Sunday, so that even if people can't show up, we're loud and they can hear us. So it's a wonderful thing. And then at the church, we have a house in was it the parsonage at one point, or did we just purchase it? Long before I got there, but it's called Hope House. And in Hope House, we have WIC comes every month, and we have AA meetings, and it's been used for youth meetings and Young Life. And most recently, we've had this awesome experience of homeless people coming to us. We had a number of them this winter, and we had people sleeping in the Hope House. We had people sleeping in our church, and we got together 4 people in the church to kind of plan out what are we going to do with homeless people in our community, because nobody has a plan in Tenino. And so we're working on that. I'm going into overtime real quick because I want to point out that the key to all of this is that there's a passion for Christ and his gospel at the church. And that I'm joining in with that. That's awesome. Plus, there's a commitment to following the leading of the Holy Spirit. There's nothing new and surprising about this. The Spirit leads us wherever he wants us to go, and the people in the church are open to that, and they want the Spirit to lead us. And then finally, we're creating an atmosphere where we're free from the fear of failure. I don't believe there's such a thing as failure in the church. There isn't. Because God's in charge, it's his church, and everything he does is a success. We just have to figure out what that success is. Thank you.
Gary, thank you. That's the shortest sermon that Gary Stevens has ever preached.
It's the truth.
I can kid with Gary because we've been friends for a long time. So, and I appreciate what's happening at Tenino. Hope that's an inspiration. We have another church that's the biggest church in the Presbytery, and that's UPPC, and one would expect that things are happening there in the community, but it doesn't necessarily go that way. There's a lot of big churches where everything is just about what happens inside the church, and it's not the case at UPPC. And Anne Cecile will come and tell us about some of that. Welcome.
Yeah, UPPC is indeed a big church that could just be. But we feel really the Spirit, like Gary just expressed it so beautifully, leading us to not stay in the walls of the church, because we cannot just at this time wait and hope for people who need God to hopefully come in. We need to get out of the wall of the church and meet them where they are. And out of the many ways we want to do that, one of the ways is to partner with other groups that already are in the community. And the YMCA is one of those groups. They are themselves in a time where they feel they need to focus on spiritual and emotional health more than they did before. So they have those classes that they call Life University, following books by these guys called Trill. I don't know I had not heard about it. It seems to be very well known, but I didn't know. And I followed that class to kind of know more about that. It's really a good book to foster the idea of change, and you do that in a small group where you support each other. And next week I'm going to start facilitating at the Y with a staff a young woman that works at the Y, another class called Journey to Healthy Living. And it's about how we deal with our perception of body image, that is really very important in our lives, and how we deal with food. And certainly that's something that I struggle with myself, and I intend to do the class and not only facilitate it. And that's also a way to reach people who struggle very often privately and with a sense of shame with those issues. And if you're interested in the class or know people who are interested in the class, I have little flyers that I can give away. Another way that we hope to reach the community actually takes place inside the wall of UPPC, but really is wide open. We started a support group for women who have dealt or are dealing with cancer, and many of you know that I've been there myself 3 years ago. And it's really wide open on the community. And as you know, small groups start, and in ministry starts, we don't really know what's going to happen. And then God is doing something. So what has happened is that this small group, there is like a core, which is several women who have had different form of cancer and who are in remission. And what we've had is people coming who were just diagnosed. And in the kind of shock you have, it's usually, in my experience, that was certainly the hardest moment of this journey, was the moment where I was diagnosed. And they get to meet with women who have been there and who share their own experience. And from what we have seen so far, this has been very helpful. And several of those women were not part of the church. Some had been before. But it was very obvious for them that, there must be a cancer support group in this church, so let's go there. And I really enjoyed the words of Gary, because that's really this feeling that the Spirit right now is really telling us, okay, come out, go out of the wall of your church. Keep it, it's still important that the church is, but it's not where all the ministry happened. It may be called an experiment right now, but it's going to be mainstream ministry very soon.
Thank you, Anne-Cecile. So I know that there's a lot of other things going on in our churches, in the community. I mean, those of you who were at our last Presbytery meeting heard about the whole working with addictions in Aberdeen. But again, to remind you, the Presbytery has monies available for your church to experiment in reaching out to your community, missional experiments. So please apprise yourself of that. The grant forms are on our website. Call me, call Carrie, call any of us, Harlan, Dave Ammons. We'd be glad to help and encourage you in that. Any questions of our three speakers? Okay, then we're going to move into our final section of this morning, which is to talk about new church development. And we have two churches that are in the process of starting. The one is a dinner church by Rachel Hoekstema, who is gathering people in her home around the dinner table in a Eucharistic meal. Now, obviously, this is not a church that's going to become self-supporting. It's going to be a house church. But it is the wave of the future, and dinner churches are starting off all around the country. So we're really grateful to have Rachel, who's actually wants to be ordained UCC. She's a candidate in the United Church of Christ, worships at Bethany with Carrie and Sarah Wiles. The other group that I've mentioned here is called Prison Church, and Prison Church looks like this. This is Purdy Prison in Gig Harbor from the air. This is how God looks at it, right? And we have some traction in conversation with an organization called Prison Congregations of America, PCA. And I know the PCA is the Presbyterian Church in America, and I always have to kind of stumble on that acronym. But Prison Congregations in America have 27 congregations related to different denominations across the country. Most of them are Episcopal or United Methodist or Reformed Church in America, or even Christian Reformed, the denominations where I started, and they want a Presbyterian prison congregation. And Purdy Prison is the place that they want to start it, and we're in conversation. I'm mustering a task force about that. Dave Brown, I know from Tenino, is involved in prison ministry, and we're going to be meeting on March 3 to move that conversation forward, meeting with people from the Women's Correctional Center of Washington, aka Purdy Prison, to move that forward. The idea is that we would gather support from various churches and hire a full-time pastor who would work half-time in the prison and half-time in the churches to build connections and community. But the church, the congregation, would be actually governed by the congregation inside the prison. And I don't mind saying, we have one of our pastors in our presbytery, Sherry Munson, who's going to be returning to this area in a couple of weeks, who did an internship there, actually knows one of the inmates in the prison. So it's like God is already kind of paving the way and kind of nudging you, say, come on, get going. We're very excited about prison ministry as a possibility. I'm going to stop my that presentation and start another one, give myself 5 more minutes. Here's the second new worshiping community, which we anticipate receiving a grant request from Little Church on the Prairie. And they are looking at starting a church, a satellite congregation down the road in Lakewood. And it's probably can't see it very well. Brad Epperson, you recognize, he's going to devote a major part of his time to planting this new congregation on the blue pin over here, which is it's called Harrison Preparatory School. And so this is where that new congregation will begin. And they're hoping to begin this fall. Excuse me, there's Harrison Preparatory School. I put these pictures first because this is where the congregation will come from. These are the apartment buildings that surround that Harrison Preparatory School, and those apartments are where those red dots are on the map. So Brad is already looking at the community, finding out where these people are living in these apartments, and has made some wonderful connections with the leadership of Harrison Preparatory School. It's like God has already paved the way, because the school is welcoming Little Church, welcoming Brad Epperson to come and begin this new worshiping community in their school. Brad sent me this picture of some of the tables where they may be sitting around and meeting. And so I'm asking on his behalf. They have a memorial service there this morning. Neither Brad nor James could be here. But on their behalf, I ask you to pray for Brad and for the people who live in those apartment buildings, that God would begin to raise up a new worshiping community, a new congregation led by the Spirit to lead people to following Jesus. So that's my 5 minutes, and now I'm going to invite up one of my new friends and brothers in Christ, Pastor John Alfred, and his friend Margaret. But John, come on up and please share with us. Umoja is our newest church plant that's underway, and some of you have been following it because we just kind of installed and commissioned John in that ministry at our last Presbytery meeting, and again at the Lakewood congregation just a couple of weeks ago. But John, welcome. Glad to see you. I'm going to give you 5 minutes.
Thank you, Keith. I'm John Alfred. I come from Kenya. Kenya is in the eastern part of Africa. And I'm glad to be with you this afternoon and be part of Olympia Presbytery. Kenya is a country that has 42 tribes. And the major tribe is Kikuyu, my tribe. a country of 40 million, Kikuyu tribe is 16 million people. So those people have immigrated to many parts of America, and in Washington state, they are scattered everywhere. Specifically, when it comes to Tacoma area, Lakewood area, Federal Way area, Kent, Seattle, there are so many Kikuyu Kenyans, and that's my focus. That's why I'm here, to focus on those Kikuyu Christians who have migrated from Kenya to United States. When I come over in December 4th, my church had 7 members. 7. And the church have been struggling on how to get the members to come back to the church. The main challenge is that these Kikuyu Kenyans have been misused by pastors who form congregations calling them Presbyterians, but later on the members, these Kikuyu Christians, discover that these are not Presbyterian churches, but they are personal churches for financial gain to the pastor. So they just tend to walk away and they stay in their homes. So my work now is to reach to these Kikuyu Christians from where they live. And as a new pastor in Lakewood or in Washington State, I don't know where these people live. Fortunately, I have Margaret with me. Margaret has been in the States for the last many years, and she is a Presbyterian, and she has been so instrumental in identifying where these Kenyans live, booking appointments for me to go to their homes, pray with them, preach to them, and you will be surprised that as per last Sunday, we were 64 members in Umoja. So I want to welcome Margaret, who is kind of Margaret knows where every Kikuyu Kenyan lives. And without her, my ministry would be so difficult. So please tell us, what's the magic that you're doing?
I'm going to give her her own 5 minutes, okay?
Oh.
She deserves her own 5 minutes here, so let's pause that, go back there. You've got 5.5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you all for welcoming me here. And my name, as you have heard, my name is Margaret Aburi. Our moderator here calls me Maggie, because we have known each other for like about 4 years now. Yeah, me and my husband, we used to worship in UPPC. But now, when Umoja, we heard about Umoja is starting to come up, and there is a referent who is coming, we say this is the time now to go and support Umoja. Going back to history a little bit, we have been here, me and my husband, for over 10 years now. And there was a time we used to have a welfare organization of Kenyans. It was just to help one of us if they have a problem back home, like they have lost a loved one or they have a hospital bill from family members. We used to gather together, contribute some money and help that member. And I happen to be the secretary of that welfare organization. So I know most of us who have been here that long, and I have the database of where they live, their names, their contacts, and more so the ones who are Presbyterian. So when our referent came, and on 31st of January during the induction, I remember very well, Reverend Dr. Keith, you said, Umoja, it's not for the church to remain here and wait for worshipers to come. It's for the church to go out there to their homes and go for them. It really stuck here. And so when we went home, me and my husband, we said, did you hear what Reverend Dr. Kidd said? This is the time now. And so our reverend, we got in touch and we started the work. I have been calling the Kenyan community members. I know that they are Presbyterians because, as you have just heard him say, we have really been misused. We are not trying to challenge anybody, but that is the reality and that is how it is. Only to realize this is so-and-so's church, you invest your time there and your resources, but nothing comes out. So when we call members and we go to their homes with our reverend here, of course they have heard about him, we introduce him to them, he preached there, he tells them why he's here, the mission, and about Umoja Presbyterian Church. Everybody is just coming. There is no one home we have knocked and being let down. We are really thrilled and excited, and thank you very much, Olympia Presbytery, because this is what you are doing. Now, the other thing is, the only challenge we have is about timing. Because most of us Kenyans, we are in the health industry. Most of us, we are caregivers. We do health work. I believe moderator is a witness of that, what we do. And so because our service starts at 12 in Lakewood, we are having challenges because some members, they would like to come to church, but they report at work at 2 o'clock, 3 p.m. We leave our service at 2 o'clock, so they don't have time. So we are sincerely requesting if it can be possible for us to relocate to the new site we have heard about. We are seeing like it might be possible with our reverend to change the time, like maybe we start our morning service at 10:30 to 12:30, so that those who works at 2 o'clock shift or 3 o'clock shift, they have time to come and worship and then go to work. And then, because we are a big community, we have our children, some of them, they don't understand Kikuyu because they are born here. Some of them, they have intermarried with other members from other countries, with Americans here. They would also want to come to church, but because their spouses does not understand Kikuyu, they are held back. My time is over, but I'm just about to finish. So if we go to the new place, it might be possible with our reverend here to start an evening service from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Those who worked in the morning, they have time to come at 3:30 church because they left their place of work like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And that will be English service. And with the intermarriages with the Americans and other tribes from Kenya and other Africans, they will be able to come and worship at 3:30 to 5:30 English service. And we are really requesting this, and we know through God it will be possible. That's why we are here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, when I've just observing what God is doing at Umoja in preparing for John's coming through the wonderful hospitality of Barlow Busher and David Alger and the congregation in Lakewood, I'm really amazed that God is really up to something in Umoja. And John, you're a gift to us, and we wish you God's blessing as you work. And Margaret, thank you for the connections that you have and are willing to share with us. And as Margaret told the story, the challenge of doing this really a multilingual, multicultural congregation, first generation, 1.5, second generation, that's a huge challenge, but God bless you as you pursue it. So we have almost at the end of our docket, and I'm going to turn it back to Harlan Shoup. Oh, I'm sorry, questions. Questions or comments of our most recent speakers?
Okay, then.
Good. Harlan.
Write them down if you think of them later and send it to them. Just a couple of things, and then we'll bring this to a close. We were going to give you a report or some update on the future staffing, and we decided to back off of that a bit today, but we'll get back to you about it. The reason that we were proposing this change is that it started with Keith's announcing that he would be retiring at the end of this year, and we needed to be thinking about how do we do staffing for the presbytery living into this new future, and how do we get over the mountains. And so we put together a small group that would begin thinking about it, and basically we ended up with deciding that we would keep our own identity as Olympia Presbytery, but partner with Seattle using some of their staff. We were already doing that to some extent with our communications, so that just seemed like the right thing to do. And then as we got closer to making a recommendation to you so that you could begin thinking and praying about it, we decided that we needed some more conversation with some folks in our presbytery, the personnel folks especially, and also with the Seattle staff, because there were some questions that came up that we couldn't answer for you, so it didn't make sense for us to pursue that. We would like to probably present something by May for sure, but by then we do need to be thinking about putting together a nominating committee for seeking executive for the next term of presbytery. So that's still there. So we need to be working on that together. And of course, the proposals that we're making changes some of our own staff configuration. So we'll get back to you about that. We are shifting our bookkeeping function to Seattle Presbytery, and we are asking for a volunteer treasurer to serve us in the future. So that change has happened, and we'll continue to keep you informed about the other changes. The other thing that we're working on is a reorganization. We think because we're smaller and times are changing, we need to reorganize and especially be able to communicate more easily and more effectively and efficiently. And so the basic recommendation that we've been working on is bringing the administrative function, which was a separate board, just in the strategic board. And that just made more sense because it's been hard to communicate with one another since both of us had responsibilities, but we weren't meeting together. So we'll come back to you about a proposal of that. It's just a way for us to reorganize to be more efficient and perhaps better communication. So I also just want to put in a plug for the next Presbytery meeting at UPPC on March the 12th. The theme will be Radical Hospitality. We have a keynote speaker, Elizabeth Thurman Bryant, who will be speaking to us about a research project that she did, and she found 7 characteristics of churches with radical hospitality. We'll include 3 discussion workshops around the refugee resettlement with World Relief, and Ben Robinson will be speaking about ministry to sex offenders, which is definitely radical hospitality. And John Stray from Peace Lutheran will be talking about discovering diversity, racial diversity within congregations and how we go about that. Again, radical hospitality. So I hope you'll make March the 12th that particular Presbytery meeting. The books will be available that we mentioned before, and you'll be able to pick those up for canoeing the mountains. So with that, are there any questions or comments before I ask David to come and close in prayer? That's me, that's what we're doing. One of the things that in going over the mountains, you know, they had to use their resources differently. And so instead of trusting their own people to lead them, they asked a native young woman to lead them. And so that's the reference to that. So using the resources that we have differently in order to make this journey is part of it. Did I do that right?
You did.
Okay. All right, David. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one thing. If y'all have been interested in all the different ways that people are doing church now, next week is Next Church in Atlanta, and it's going to be streamed online. So it's a gathering of Presbyterians who are looking at the next church. I was able to attend in Dallas in 2011, and it was a wonderful, wonderful conference. So if you're interested in what's next for the church, check it out online.
Yeah, that's one thing for sure, is that we don't know what we're doing, which is really great. And it helps us be faithful and trust in what God is leading us to do. I don't see the women that were... There they are. Would you give our hosts a round of applause? Thank you. Another part of what we're thinking... Oh, I only saw... Okay. Men and women. Yes. One of the things that we're proposing is in September and November, coming here again to Westminster for our Presbytery meeting, thinking that we'll make this home base so that, and they have graciously said, yeah, we'd be interested in doing that because they're so gifted and set up for making that happen. So we think that's a good plan, a good way for us to move forward too. David, thank you.
Will you rise and join me in prayer? And I have a benediction for you after that. Holy God, we thank you so much for the inspiration of this day. We thank you for loving us so extravagantly, for being with us, for walking that uncertain future path. We pray for your energy and your enthusiasm and your fresh new ideas, and help us to lean into that future. I pray for every single person here, your richest blessing upon them and their families, their congregations, their communities. Thank you for our leaders in the Presbytery of Olympia, Carrie and Keith and Steve and all the others who have done such great yeoman work in being change agents. I pray that you will go with each of us as we return to our homes in hopefully a sunny afternoon, and meet together with our people on Lord's Day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I'd like to give you a blessing and benediction using an old monastic benediction that Pastor David Kegley uses for us now and then. It's kind of a kick in the butt, so enjoy it. May God bless you with discomfort, free from easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you will live deeply and from the heart. May God bless you with anger at oppression, injustice, and the exploitation of people, so that you will work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who mourn, so that you will reach out your hand to them and turn their mourning into joy. And may God bless you with just enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in this world, so that you will do those things that others say cannot be done. Blessings on you all.
Amen.